There has been a licensing kerfuffle with the 3DBenchy 3D model that's used for benchmarking 3D printers. We're talking about this model. Here I am on printables.com. This will become relevant later. And here is the original 3DBenchy 3D model, specifically designed for testing and benchmarking 3D printers. And you can see here this particular model that everyone who's familiar with 3D printing knows and loves. It says hashtag 3DBenchy on the transom and CT3D.xyz on the bottom, for lack of knowing what you call the bottom of a boat. I have one here. I printed one on my resin printer a long time ago. On the transom, like we said, here's the hashtag 3DBenchy. And then on the bottom here is the CT3D.xyz. So the controversy then starts with a Reddit post. I'm not sure if this is the original one or just referring to the other one. But a new entity owns the 3DBenchy, and they seem to be far more intent on enforcing the original license, which is where all the takedowns are coming from. Please don't flame the original creators, it's not them. Source from Daniel Noré, the man who made it. The source we'll get to in a moment. Some of you may have seen these posts about 3DBenchy derivatives suddenly being taken down. People are rightfully getting pissed off that their models are suddenly being taken down. Their anger is totally valid, but right now it's largely misdirected. This isn't Creative Tools suddenly deciding to enforce their license after not giving a hoot for years. Creative Tools as a company is no more, and another entity has acquired their assets, including the IP of 3DBenchy. This new entity is enforcing the license, which is where the takedowns are coming from. Please do not go yelling at Daniel or those who worked at Creative Tools, because they're not the ones doing this. This seems like a hell of a low blow to me and totally pointless, but here we are. If you want to read about the Benchy and the end of Creative Tools, Daniel wrote about it here. First, the post it refers to is this public service announcement where this person posts a screenshot where they ask a question to what looks like a support chat. My glitched out Benchy was removed, saying the license doesn't allow mixing, but please take a moment and look at the source and tell me where this is noted. This version clearly says public domain. If you are going to remove every alternate Benchy model, you are going to cause a serious problem in the 3D printing community. And the answer comes, hello, thanks for the question. Unfortunately, all Benchy 3D models will be removed in the coming days due to the strict licensing requirements set by the original company, which prohibits any remixes or modifications. While we are not happy with this outcome, we must comply and enforce these licensing terms, especially since Benchy 3D is a widely recognized model for testing and calibration. This decision applies across the entire platform, and we are committed to ensuring consistent enforcement. Thank you for your understanding, and we appreciate your continued contributions. And the original poster then says, apparently 3DBenchy.com is sending lawyers after platforms like Printables, but at some point, when something is as widely distributed as this, they lose control of it. Yes, but no. They still own a copyright. Someone will still own the underlying copyright. If there's a license, there's a license. We're going to go over that license in just a moment here. First, what did Daniel Noré post? It's long. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I've highlighted out the word Benchy. But he says, basically, here's the story of how we created Creative Tools and then eventually sold it in 2018. So it's not his anymore. Please stop yelling at him. In so many words. The home of 3DBenchy now exists only in our memories. Most of the projects I'd been part of at Creative Tools were released under a Creative Commons license, including 3DBenchy. In 2018, we sold the company, started a new chapter in the Book of Life, moved, and closed down the Stockholm office. There's more. You can read about it. I'll post the link in the description. So then the community's response was somewhat understandable. More Benchy derivatives or remixes were posted, and then Hackaday picked it up with that screenshot. Nobody likes reading the fine print, least of all when you're downloading a 3D model. Case in point, the 3DBenchy model. The license is and always has been the Creative Commons BYND 4.0, which requires attribution and forbids distributing derivative works. This means that legally any derived version of this popular model being on Thingiverse printables is illegal, as noted 7 years ago by an observant user on Reddit. Oh, let's look at that. Seeing all the remixes lately tells me one thing: no one reads the license. Well, you cannot forbid people to make models of imaginary boats. We're going to talk about that. So what does the license say then? Although it's going to be a bit of an adjustment with license enforcement, ultimately the idea of Creative Commons was to set up clear rules which become meaningless if not observed. So here is the license. 3DBenchy by Creative Tools is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution No Derivatives 4.0 International License. You are free to do these things, and only free to do these things. Download the file and print your Benchy. Give away and even sell the 3D prints. Doesn't say you can sell the file. Publish images and videos. You own them. Redistribute the unmodified Benchy STL file. Experiment, innovate, create. We made 3DBenchy as a tool for playing around, try settings. So it's meant as a benchmark. And modify it for personal use. Publish texts, images, and videos of your experimentation, but not derivative models. There's nothing in here that says anything about derivative models, that you can make a derivative. So in a sense, it literally says no derivatives, ND, in the license. So you can't make derivatives under this license. But wait, the plot thickens. All3dp.com then reports no. The rights holder has not enforced the license, and this is something else. So, what could it possibly be? Reports that remixes of the ubiquitous 3DBenchy have been removed from printables. Those reports have been rolling in this week, but it turns out the enforcement isn't at the request of the model's current rights holder. NTI Group's Henrietta Tomasauskas says, we are trying to establish an overview of what has happened, as we have not actively and intentionally tried to do a license reinforcement. They confirmed that they have taken no action to enforce the 3DBenchy license and have no intention of charging for or monetizing the 3DBenchy model. Instead, it appears to be Prusa Research, the company behind printables.com, stating that the repository is conducting business as usual and enforcing the model's original license. Quote, we understand that 3DBenchy is a beloved and iconic model in the 3D printing community, and its widespread popularity means that enforcing the nuances of its license can be complex. Therefore, we approach the reduction or removal of such models with great care and humility. Not all remixes of 3DBenchy on printables.com have been removed yet, as we are still evaluating individual cases to decide whether they can remain on the platform or need to be removed to comply with the license. Prusa later confirmed that the license enforcement was prompted by a third-party report, but couldn't provide further details. Following the article's publication, Prusa Research got in touch and said, we are now in contact with NTI Group, who identify themselves as the owners. Based on our conversation, they confirmed they were not the ones reporting the issue. We must still act in accordance with the licensing rights. We are currently discussing the matter with them, and if they choose to permit remixes, we will work together to find a sustainable and solid solution moving forward. And who are they talking about, this NTI group? It's this Swedish group. I think it's Swedish. And they say here, Creative Tools is now part of us. Creative Tools has extensive experience in 3D design, visualization, and animation, and offers products from world-leading manufacturers in these areas. Their product portfolio includes software tools used by professionals in film, TV, architecture, and gaming industries. We are currently working to integrate their entire product range into our web shop. If you are looking for a specific product, please contact Tim or Hannah, and they will help you with your needs. You can find their contact details at the bottom of the page. So what do I think as a copyright attorney? I've got some harsh legal words for you. Yes, companies can enforce these kinds of license agreements, contracts, ownership, just basic ownership, regardless if there was no license, if there was no express Creative Commons license attached to this thing, they could still be enforcing their rights just as harshly or not as harshly as they so choose. It doesn't matter that it's a model of a boat. They made their own model. It's their expression, and someone copying it is violating their copyright. And if they want to, they can enforce it, whoever owns it. And if it was owned by a company and that company was later sold to another company or another person, then that person or company, they have the rights to that thing. This can happen. This is how works get orphaned. This is how works that were previously free or freely available are suddenly restricted or heavily monetized. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. If you have a work that has multiple parts to it, like a movie with merchandising and things like that, you have multiple sets of rights that all have to be worked out. So yes, when you work with any digital file, you have to be thinking about the copyright behind it and whether you are authorized to do what you're doing. I understand that that is not how people go through their day. That's how copyright attorneys like me go through my day, and nobody really wants to live like that, except copyright attorneys like me. But that's what you have to do, especially if you're putting things on the internet, expecting Prusa, a competing company, or not, just another company, just a separate company from Creative Tools and NTI. Prusa and Printables want to insulate themselves from any liability and risk. So it's very possible that some very savvy lawyer out there is like, hey, we've been letting people get away with Creative Commons license violations and are to this day, and one of these days we're going to get sued for it. Take a look at the Kerry Culpepper lawsuits and other internet service provider lawsuits where instead of suing the individual pirates or infringers, now they're going after the internet service provider themselves because that's where the deep pockets are. Prusa probably doesn't want printables.com to be a source of that kind of liability either. So you can take it for what you will. Maybe we shouldn't be angry at NTI or Creative Tools or even Prusa or Printables for trying to figure out this quagmire of legal rights. What might be better for everyone is better communication about why these things are being done. If we go back to this image here of the conversation, this is not entirely clear. All Benchy 3D models will be removed in the coming days. It doesn't say anything about at whose direction or why, or we are doing this at our own direction for our own protection. This is not in compliance and we have noticed. Nothing like that. Just very vaguely in sort of a non-active voice says they will be removed by some unknown force. Obviously, Prusa is now, we know, the ones doing this, but this was entirely unclear. And so it sort of ended up pointing the finger at Daniel and Creative Tools and NTI when it really should have been taken, responsibility should have been taken by Prusa in the first place. So that's what's going on there. Let me know what you think in the comments below.